Years before Sonic the Hedgehog, the Sega Genesis was brought to North America in 1989. It was accompanied by much fanfare. Known as the Mega Drive in Japan, the system brought 16-bit gaming to the mainstream, and it competed directly with the NES, and later the SNES, in North America. With over 700 games released in North America by the end of its run, the system's library featured an eclectic array of amazing and well-known games. From The Revenge of Shinobi, to Streets of Rage 2, to Castlevania Bloodlines, the Sega Genesis truly had something to offer every gaming enthusiast. Nevertheless, there are also many great games that are relatively forgotten. Whether because of lackluster marketing, a lower number of copies distributed, or an ill-timed release, many Genesis games remained lurking in the shadows of history, until now. The goal of this video is to bring these fantastic hidden gems to light so that fans of the Genesis, and retro collectors in general, can discover them once again. People define hidden gem in several different ways, but for the purposes of this video, I'm considering a game as such if it was great for its genre, despite having a lack of notoriety. Many of the games on my list were also not marketed well, sold relatively few copies, or were incredibly hard to find. Simply put, these were great but obscure titles. With all that said, let's get into the top 10. Coming in as the 10th greatest Genesis hidden gem is Alicia Dragoon, an action platformer bursting with lore and filled with great gameplay. Alicia is the daughter of a great sorcerer who once tried and failed to stop the Prince of Evil, Baldur. Now seeking vengeance, she vows to destroy him before he can be reborn again. As a free-roaming action-adventure, the game plays quite a bit like Super Metroid and Castlevania. Throughout the game, there are power-ups to collect that improve Alicia and her animal companions that can be found throughout. Your laser-like attack is just fun, and there weren't many action games where you feel this powerful. The game definitely isn't a pushover though, and you have to stay on your toes to avoid attacks and destroy screens full of enemies that can kill you. The thing I remember most about this game is how awesome the bosses were. You can tell the developers put some time into them, as each have unique attacks that require some patience and experience to defeat. Many of them also brought a few storyline sequences, which allowed for character development that was not often found in action games at this time. I was extremely surprised when I heard that Sega was putting this game on the Sega Genesis Mini, and was very glad they did so. The number 9 best hidden gem on the system is Arcus Odyssey. This adventure classic was a wonderful addition to the Genesis library, and there are almost no other games like it. You start off with the ability to select from one of 4 archetypes, each with varying strengths and weaknesses. From there, you fight your way through dungeons, collect items, and defeat powerful bosses. One unique facet of this game is its isometric view, which was fun to circumnavigate. A lot of the titles with this style suffered from bad controls, but not Arcus Odyssey. This one was easy to get used to. The fact that your projectiles ricocheted off walls and through corridors was also super cool. Using your creativity, you could kill monsters that were out of reach and evade enemy attacks. The best feature of Arcus Odyssey was that 2 players could join in a co-op mode. This was just so awesome and made the game play like an advanced version of Gauntlet. If you never played Arcus Odyssey before, now's your chance. The game is still fun to play today, and definitely provided a different experience than anything else on the system. To this day, I still can't believe it doesn't get more acclaim. The 8th best hidden gem on the Genesis is Musha, an excellent vertical scrolling shooter developed by Compile, the creators of the Guardian Legend. As an early release for the Genesis, this game was visually impressive and had a unique aesthetic that stood out. Some of the levels and bosses are reminiscent of feudal Japan in the samurai era, and this made the game feel different than almost any other shooter out there. One of the biggest things that stands out about Musha is the awesome weapons. Here you'll find cannons of several different forms, lasers of varying widths, and an assortment of bombs. The boss enemies are also very well designed, and there are some areas where the player has to maneuver to avoid moving obstacles. It's everything you want a game like this to be. Unlike many other space shooters of this kind, you can get power-ups that allow you to fire supplemental weaponry horizontally while your main weapon continues to shoot vertically. Effectively, this gave the game complexity and added a new dimension to the gameplay, because you now had more freedom to destroy enemies without getting in front of them. I can't really recall any other shooter that does this, and it was a great idea that was incorporated well in Musha. The game actually isn't as punishing and unfair as many of the other shooters from the era too, which is refreshing. All in all, it's one of the 3 best space shooters on the Genesis. Number 7 on my list for the top Genesis hidden gems is Ranger X. This was a great run-and-gun shoot-'em-up with a futuristic theme. The game has some linear parts, but much of it is non-linear with freedom to explore. Ranger X offered something few other titles on the system did: dual-action gameplay. For portions of the game, you control a robot fighter called the EXCP that can move left and right, fire his cannon, and hover and fly. In addition though, you also have a motorcycle-like vehicle that follows you on the ground. You had to use both methods to conquer the game's challenges, and it forced the player to utilize creativity. There's some really memorable parts to Ranger X, like places where you had to defeat enemies as you fly higher and higher, and even areas where the game became a scrolling space shooter of sorts. The explosions in Ranger X are great. Some of the weaponry also made you feel super powerful. There are huge bosses that provide a challenge, and you really got a sense of accomplishment when you managed to overcome them. I was also very impressed by the game's musical score. This is quintessential Genesis sound chip at its best. Make sure to pick up Ranger X and play it if you ever get the chance. The 6th greatest Genesis hidden gem is Gargoyles. This was an amazing looking action title that seemed to push the system's graphical capabilities to its sheer limits. A title based on a now forgotten animated series couldn't have been very good though, right? Well, this one definitely was. It's just too bad it was released in 1995 at the tail end of the system's life and just as the Sega Saturn was released. You can fly in Gargoyles, but it isn't too overpowered because the levels were designed with this in mind, so you still have to make your way through various passages otherwise, and you can't skip that much content. I also liked how certain structures are damaged and you can tell that they are hollowed out, so the game also played with visual depth in mind. Another thing that sticks out about Gargoyles is that the backgrounds in this game were dark. This fit the motif perfectly and carved out a special style that wouldn't work for every game. The visuals in Gargoyles almost jump out at you, and the game is really a spectacle to play. All the animations for the characters and enemy movements are equally impressive. Whether it is running, climbing walls, rolling along the ground, or flying, everything just looks amazing. Before playing this game, I didn't even know the Genesis was capable of delivering such an experience. Though graphics don't make a game, they certainly made this one better. It's almost a crime that Gargoyles didn't get more praise at the time. Number 5 on my list is Beyond Oasis. This was a colorful action-adventure game with a visual style that is immediately recognizable. You play the role of Prince Ali. Wait, no, not that one. Who discovered a magical gold armlet that once belonged to a powerful wizard. There are definite similarities between this game and ones like Illusion of Gaia and A Link to the Past, and I say that as a compliment. Items also play a key role in this one, and special weapons are necessary to defeat certain enemies. The default weapon is Ali's knife, but he can also obtain swords, crossbows, and bombs. Eventually, you gain the ability to summon 4 elemental spirits: water, fire, shadow, and plant. The game was visually impressive in every single way. In fact, if I had to pick the most graphically impressive Genesis game, Beyond Oasis may be it. The bosses were just awesome, and even some of the regular enemies are huge. Just look at these sprites. All the animations are great, and the sound effects were just really well done. Beyond Oasis was published by Sega at the tail end of the system's heyday, and it just didn't catch on like many other titles. The company also brought its prequel, The Legend of Oasis, to the Saturn, but I didn't like that one as much. If you love action-adventure games, Beyond Oasis is a retro title you must pick up and play today. For the 4th greatest hidden gem on the Genesis, I selected Mutant League Football. Trust me, this is not your typical football experience. It's hyperbolic, over the top, and loads of multiplayer fun. The league is comprised of the Maniac Conference and the Toxic Conference, and there are 16 regular teams plus 3 all-star teams that are loaded with the best players. I was partial to the Aliens, and me and my friends used to play this game for hours. The thing that stands out about Mutant League Football the most is the hazards in this game. There are landmines, fires, ice, toxic waste, and other objects you have to avoid. And get this, you can even bribe the referee so that arbitrary penalties, like a 5-yard penalty for crying, is assessed against the opposing team. If that isn't enough, you can even kill the ref by way of a nasty audible. Nasty audibles are special plays that you can use once per half for crazy advantages, like super speed. You can also use them to kill players on the other team, and the game can end if a team doesn't have enough players living. The game is full of players with names that are parodies for real players too. For instance, Bones Jackson for Bo Jackson, Joe Magician for Joe Montana, and Scary Ice for Jerry Rice. It was just so goofy, crazy, and ridiculous, and I promise you'll have a ton of good laughs when you're playing it. If you're looking for a Genesis game with pure over-the-top fun, Mutant League Football is the perfect one to choose. Third on my list of hidden gems is Elemental Master, a vertical scrolling shooter game like no other. This was an early release for the system that just shined. The game revolves around the acquisition of various weapons, all with different visuals and burst patterns. For each boss you destroy, you gain an additional weapon. Altogether, they seem pretty balanced, and they are all good in particular situations. The huge bosses with their awesome animations are just a sight to behold, and they definitely left an impression when I first faced them. Unlike many other shooter games, in Elemental Master, you could reverse your direction to shoot enemies approaching from behind you. This added a new dimension to shooter gameplay, and was a great idea that almost no other game featured. Elemental Master was just a fun game to pick up and play, and it wasn't so absurdly difficult like many of the other shooter games from this time. The runner-up for the greatest Genesis hidden gem is Target Earth, a free-roaming dystopian run-and-gun shooter. Known as Assault Suit Lenos in Japan, this game was the predecessor to Cybernator for the SNES, and it plays pretty similarly. As a cyborg, or assault suit, your mission is to stop a powerful cyborg army from invading Earth. As Rex, you must battle your way through 8 levels, all of which are packed with enemies and other obstacles. There are also some stages where you hover in the air, and the game transitions into more of a side-scrolling shooter. Not many other games did this in a similar way, and it varied the gameplay effectively. The title just felt a lot less linear than other games of this type. You can stop at shops to upgrade your guns and ammunition, and the various weapons made it exciting to find the best for each situation. For example, you could use powerful missiles that were especially helpful in some cases, and also a sweet-looking blue laser. As an early release on the Genesis, Target Earth was fantastic. The explosions are great, the bosses were intimidating, and the cyberpunk theme is a real treat. If you like Cybernator or Metal Warriors on the SNES, you'll be especially drawn to this one. The greatest hidden gem on the Genesis was Crusader of Senti, a must-play action-adventure that was released in 1995. The title has sometimes been panned for being a ripoff of The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, but let me assure you, this one stands on its own. Our hero Corona is a young boy that inherits his father's sword and sets out to save the world from there. But please don't let this cliche fool you, the experience itself is utterly fantastic. Visually, the game is just awesome with vibrant colors that rival many of the system's best titles. The sprites are perfectly designed and some of the bosses just look amazing. There are also various animals, 16 in total, that can be found to aid you in your journey. You can even find Sonic lounging around. The dungeons are well designed, the controls are smooth, the animations are super detailed, and the gameplay is upper echelon. There's almost no drawback to this game, and of course, the best part, you can use your sword like a boomerang. In my opinion, this is the most addictive game on the system. Once you play it, it's hard to stop, and the challenges will keep you glued to your television. If the game is really a clone of A Link to the Past, that's a pretty high bar to reach in the first place. If you can play only one game on this list, make sure it's Crusader of Senti because it's possibly the best Genesis game ever made. If you agreed with any of the top 10 hidden gems I selected or thought I left some out, leave me a comment below or just let me know your personal top 10. If you like my videos, please subscribe to my channel and click the bell below to be alerted upon the addition of new ones. Also, please consider supporting my channel via YouTube's Join feature to receive member exclusives, such as advanced videos and complete video transcripts.